Welcome to Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio. Thursday night, President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump held their first of two scheduled debates moderated by CNN's Dana Bash and Jake Tapper at CNN Studios in Atlanta, Georgia. During the 90-minute debate, Biden and Trump were asked about the economy, the war in Ukraine, climate change, the border, and election denials, of course, issues most Americans, in polls anyway, say they are most concerned about heading into the 2024 election. To me, it was a disaster to some degree. I certainly wasn't impressed by Trump because there was a lot of stuff that he was telling that didn't seem to be on point. In Biden's case, he froze within the first couple of minutes. I was in panic mode. It was hard to look at him. It was hard to listen to him. It was just bad, ladies and gentlemen. It was just bad. But before I even get into it any further, why do it alone when I've got an expert to join me? Joining me to discuss last night's debates is the host of Cuomo on News Nation. He's my buddy. He's one of the elite political minds as far as I'm concerned. His journalism career has been absolutely great. He's a friend. I love his show. I love him. And he's a friend of the show. The one and only Chris Cuomo is here with me right now. What's up, big time? How you doing, man? How's everything?
Listen, I love you so much that even though, as you know, we were on until like 1 o'clock in the morning and then I had to drive back home.
Right.
I'm up, I'm haggard, but I'm here for you, Stephen A. Smith, because I must make my witness on your account. I'm a big fan of you and what you're doing.
I appreciate that so much. By the way, I appreciate that crib behind you even more. It looks pretty spectacular.
You are welcome.
You know I'm coming. You know I'm coming through. I'm definitely coming through. And by the way, I saw you puffing on a cigar. Don't put the cigar down on my account. I mean, you can keep it. It looks pretty damn cool. I might start smoking those cigars. I mean, if that's the life that I'm talking about is waiting for me. But look, in all seriousness, Chris, basically break down for me what we saw last night. I thought I was scared when the president froze within the first couple of minutes. I said, oh my God, please don't let this happen. Please don't let that. I don't wish that on anybody. I wouldn't wish it on Trump. I didn't wish it on him. It was just a bad scenario as far as I was concerned, although he ultimately came on and showed a little something as the debate progressed. What was your take on what we witnessed last night?
It was a good night and it was a fast fight, Stephen A. To paraphrase Dennis Green, he is who we thought he was. He is who we thought he was.
Right.
This is a man who is in decline. Does that mean that he's a ghost and everybody else is making decisions for him? No. It means that when live and needing to be spontaneous, Joe Biden is no longer up to the task. And this is the reality. And the blame goes not to Biden. It goes to the party for how they locked people out of the process. And they have now put themselves in somewhat of a predicament because they put themselves in a position where they only win because of the anti-Trump vote. There is no pro-Biden vote. And that's a lot of pressure to put on the base. And look, your assessment of Trump is right. The frustration with him is he's a serial and pathological liar. And he doesn't tell anybody how he's going to do anything because all he is about being a demagogue and making people upset. And lucky for him, a lot of people have a lot of legit reasons to be upset and want disruption and want to see the system tore up. They tell you that all the time. So what did last night mean? It meant that people like me and you are right, that the system has to change, that the two parties have failed us, and that we have to do better. It's embarrassing that Trump and Biden is the best America can do.
You talked about the Democratic Party and them being at fault, and I completely agree with you. I've been going off about this for months, talking about how they should be ashamed of themselves. They've had 8 years to build a bullpen, and they have no bullpen whatsoever, to use a sports analogy when it comes to baseball. Nobody in the bullpen to take over in the event that this guy Biden ultimately just can't do it. And you alluded to the Democratic Party locking people out, essentially. I want you to elaborate on that. I want that coming from you instead of somebody like me. When you say that, specify what you mean by that statement. The Democratic Party did this to themselves by locking folks out.
They didn't allow a primary process. Now, part of that is understandable because they had the incumbent, and the incumbent is rarely primaried. Okay, but this is an extraordinary circumstance. We're not used to having a president in obvious decline that is losing the confidence of the American people. And they locked out Bobby Kennedy, and you don't have to like Bobby Kennedy to like the proposition that he represents a bad party system. And they would have known this, and the American people would have known this had they seen Joe Biden tested more sooner. Now, there is a theory going around that the Democrats set up this debate early not to expose that Trump was wrong about Biden, but to expose that Trump is right about Biden. Not necessarily to help Trump, but to help themselves move on. But there's only one person who can do that. President Biden has to look at his wife in the eyes, look at his sister in the eyes, and then ask himself a question. I said this 3 weeks ago, by the way, Stephen, that only Biden can make this call. He's got to look at it and say, if I really think Donald Trump is a threat to the democracy, then I have to step away. I did not get it done last night, and things will only get worse. Only he can answer that question, and he has to do that. And at a minimum, so wherever he is, President Biden should be coming out today and apologizing for how he was last night and owning that, look, I don't have my fastball anymore. I don't have the ability to dazzle you live the way a Trump can. But I know what matters, and I know how to make the decisions. I'm not the best salesman. I'm not that guy anymore, but I can do the job, and he's a danger. If I were Joe Biden's team, I would force that to happen today. But Joe Biden's got to ask himself the question. And if he steps away, do they have chaos? Yeah, they got some chaos, but they got plenty of time to pick somebody else. And I'll tell you who better hope that doesn't happen. Trump.
I totally believe you with that. But you know, speaking to a couple of other political analysts off the record, here's what I had one tell me. You can't change the candidate when the election is 5 months away. It would be suicidal and tear the Democratic Party apart. Do you agree with that at all?
No. You know, that's the problem with pundits, right? You're always in a 50-50 position. You're going to say something. If you're wrong, you just move to the next. And if you're right, you tell everybody about it.
Right.
There are no rules, Stephen A. There's so much money out there, and there's so much media saturation. You know, that answer is informed by an understanding that, like, it takes you a long time to get known in America.
Right.
We both know that's not true.
That's not true.
We have instant celebrities made every week on TikTok.
I'm looking at it from that standpoint, but then I must ask myself, all right, if not Biden, whom? I'm not talking about in terms of people who are qualified. I think Kamala Harris is qualified. The vice president is Madam Vice President. She's qualified. I think Michelle Obama, I think she'd win by a landslide, but she wants nothing to do with politics, as she has repeatedly told us. I think you could take Hillary Clinton out of the scrap heap, for crying out loud, and she would be exponentially better than Joe Biden at this point. That's just me. But I don't know who would resonate at this point that could gather momentum to compete with Trump. Am I wrong in thinking that way?
No, you're right in thinking that. Look, polls are seductive, right? You look at the polls and you got like 6 people who beat Trump on paper. That's not reality. And I think that really you've got you have 3 plays. You've got the Bobby Kennedy play, who's a lot more controversial than people give him credit for,
right?
Because we're in such a crazy atmosphere that the stuff that he's said over the years that he has never had to own makes him a little bit more moderate than maybe he is. But he's an option. He's a Democrat. You have Shapiro from Pennsylvania, who acquitted himself very well coming out of the last election, is now a governor. And we like people with executive experience. But then you have the wild card, who I think is maybe the most interesting Democrat in the mix, and that's the governor of Maryland, Wes Moore. That man checks every box of what you want in a leader. And I think that he could come on fire.
I've had him on this show. I've had him on this show, Chris. Yeah, I was very impressed by him.
No weaknesses.
Zero.
The man has no weaknesses. Now, we haven't had people dig into him to try to find out what's wrong with him yet, but I don't think he'd be where he is if he had an obvious skeleton in the closet. And I have him on the show tonight. I've had him on before, but I have him on tonight. It'll be interesting to see how far he is towards Newsom when it comes to defending Joe Biden. There is a defense to be made. What do you want? Do you want a guy who's off their game but playing the right game, or do you want a guy who's a potential madman? And that's why Trump loses if he loses, is that people are like, look, Biden man, that's sad.
Yeah.
But I'd still rather have him and the people around him who have made the calls they've made to this date than to have this psycho. That's why Trump loses if he loses.
I had the pleasure of being a guest on your show last night on Cuomo for News Nation, a show that I love. You're doing a phenomenal job. Congratulations to you on all that you've done to build that network and your show simultaneously. You also had Governor Gavin Newsom of California on the show. You mentioned some other people, particularly Wes Moore. You didn't mention Gavin Newsom. Why?
Because he keeps saying he's not going to run. You know, you got to be careful what comes out of your face. You know, you can always change. I think Newsom is a very impressive guy. He's got a mixed bag in California. You saw how our boy Adam Carolla poured into his ass.
That's right.
When he was out there.
That's right.
And look, I'm sure he was pissed about that. And on some level, that's probably my bad. I'm okay with people speaking their piece. I don't think anything Adam said was you know, off the reservation. He was a little disrespectful, but I think he hates Newsom, or at least he will say it that way.
Well, he does.
And, you know, I mean, you got to be careful, but Adam doesn't have to be careful because he doesn't care how people feel about how he feels.
Right.
But I guess there's a little bit of bad on me that Newsom came on under one pretense and then got hit with that. But hey, man, that's what you sign up for at the same time. And I think Newsom is absolutely in play, but I don't think it's a layup. But that's okay. I mean, the idea that someone can only run if it's such a shoo-in that they're going to win. I can't think of the last president who won where everybody thought he was going to win coming into it. So I don't have any problem with that. I think Newsom is formidable on paper. I do not think Whitmer is as formidable as she is spoken about. I think Shapiro is more formidable than he's spoken about. But none of this matters if Joe Biden doesn't want to lead. None of it matters. That has to happen. In Latin, in the law, they call it the sine qua non. Without this, nothing. And here's what's going to happen the next week. If there's not a huge supervening news event, there's a lot of chit chat about what Democrats are going to do about Biden, but they don't have an answer. So this story is going to live and die, and Biden's going to stay right where he is unless he decides to move away. That's my suspicion.
If you were given the assignment of finding a way to convince the President of the United States to bow out and walk away and allow another candidate to enter the fray, how would you approach Joe Biden in an effort to convince him to do such a thing?
So I know Joe Biden a fair amount. He can take it and he can hear it. He's not Trump, okay? You're crazy to tell Trump bad stuff. He's going to say bad things about you. He's going to talk to people around you to have them go bad on you, and then he's never going to listen to you again. That's the truth. I've heard it too many times. I've seen it too many times. Now, with Biden, it's different. So here's what you do. You ask the president, how do you think you did last night? He answers. If he doesn't answer the right way, you tell him, well, that's not how everybody else sees it, and that's the concern, sir. Let me show you the numbers. Let me show you why the numbers are there, and you show him a clip reel of last night. And you say, this doesn't win. Can you be something better than this? If he says, yeah, I can, this is what it was, this is what it was, great. We're going to set it up to do it tonight. You're going to go out tonight and take questions from somebody who we're going to pick who's not really a friendly, and show people that you're not who this guy is. But if this is who you are, the numbers say we lose. You have to put it to him like that. You're doing him no favors otherwise, and he'll respect you for it. Because Joe Biden is not a soft guy, and he's not a weak guy. And that's exactly, may he rest in peace, who would have been an amazing leader for this country. He was a generational figure. His son, Beau Biden, would say exactly that to him. Pop, this does not win. Can you be better than this? And if so, you got to go out and be better than this tonight.
You said you'd peel a clip. What clip would you peel from last night's debate? There's got to be something that stands out.
Well, yeah, I'd show him two things. I'd show him his brain fart that ended with the word Medicaid, and I would show how he was looking at Trump the whole night. Anthony Scaramucci said it best. You had taken off at that point. Anthony Scaramucci said he was sitting there with his mouth open, looked like a guy who was waiting for applesauce in the nursing home.
Wow. That's a great analogy, to be quite honest with you.
That is exactly what he looked like.
Yes.
And he's got to own it. Look, I have one of these big dogs, right? I was raised by one, and my father, who absolutely required critical feedback. That cat was a self-loather. He was a member of a different generation. If you told him good things about him, he doubted your judgment.
Right.
I got that gene. My brother is another big dog who also has to hear it, and he respects it when he hears it. He doesn't like it, but he needs to hear it. Joe Biden's that kind of guy. And if they don't say that to him, now they're in the realm of malpractice. I don't believe they practiced at Camp David the way people are saying they did. I don't think that's true. I think he was there, but I think they were doing a lot more strategic planning about the debate than they were doing this memorization contest with him. His problem is he's got a cogency and an articulation issue. He doesn't have a memory issue. He said 15,000, he meant 15 million. So what?
Yeah, so what? Yeah.
He shouldn't make that mistake. But the bigger mistake is you don't know how to get yourself out of trouble anymore with your mouth. You don't know how to do it. You were out of line last night with Trump. You were disrespectful to Trump in a way that disaffects some of his persuadables. And some of the stuff you say Trump said, he didn't say. Right. The truth is enough. Don't play his game of exaggeration. But most importantly, and overall, you didn't get it done. And if you can't be better than you were last night, this is over. So give us the answer.
A couple of questions before I let you get on out of here, and I really appreciate your time because I know everybody's looking to talk to you today around America. But I've got this full screen up right now, and I'm about to put up right now with so many of the things that Trump said, and the fact checkers have been all over him in regards to that. Some Democratic states allow people to execute babies after birth. Every legal scholar wanted Roe v. Wade overturned. Everybody, even Democrats, wanted Roe v. Wade overturned. U.S. currently has the biggest budget deficit ever. U.S. currently has a record trade deficit with China. The list goes on and on and on. You see it all there. Is there anything that you felt was unfair to Trump other than what you just articulated about Biden?
No. Trump had a great night, and their strategy worked. I had my experience, not with CNN, but with the guys who fired me. I do not have a grudge against CNN, and you're not going to hear me badmouth them because I respect too many of the people who were there. It was never fair, as you said last night really well with me and Carolla. To say that Jake Tapper can't do the job is nonsense. To say that Dana Bash can't do the job is nonsense. It's demonstrably false. They've done the job many times. Doesn't matter how they feel about Trump. Almost nobody likes Trump in his own family, let alone in the media. They were fair last night. In fact, I thought Trump got a pass last night. And that was partially because of the format, and partially, I think, because him yelling and screaming all week about how they hate him and it can't be fair. I think it worked. I think he worked the refs and he got what he wanted.
Last question to you, and I'm going to veer left. Like you said, like Adam Carolla, you know, Governor Gavin Newsom was thrown to left when Adam Carolla ultimately went off subject and was getting on him about COVID and the beaches in California, stuff like that. Let me try that with you. I saw your brother on Real Time with Bill Maher. I thought he was exceptional. As a native New Yorker, I miss your brother. I miss your dad, God rest his soul. My mother and father were Mario Cuomo fans. Your father was once the governor. Your brother was once the governor. We know that story. How come we can't entertain the notion of your brother jumping into the fray, considering how dismal things appear to be at this particular moment in time for the Democratic Party?
So, first answer is thank you for the generous assessment of the people in my family. My father was a good man. May rest in peace. I will tell you this, and this is the truth. I have gotten so many communications, because they're not all phone calls, last night into this morning about my brother Andrew. And the sense of regret among Democrats. And this is what we do. We eat our own. And now what are we going to do? He should have been in the mix. And I don't think they're wrong. I think Andrew would have had a significant struggle on his hand. He'd have things he'd have to defend. And it's certainly not a given. And he would have been an underdog in my mind. But you've got to be careful about who you kill in this business. And the Democrats have done themselves dirty all through this process. What they did with Franken, what happened with my brother, he can answer for himself. I'm here to defend him, but I got a lot of calls about him. Now, I can tell you that my brother is hopelessly addicted to public service. I wish he were not. I wish he could find satisfaction and fulfillment in the private sector. He is so smart. He is so capable. He has so much gas in the tank. But that cat is all about service. I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know when he's going to do it. He's dead right about the New York prosecution of Donald Trump. It's only because of who he is. And the easiest way to look at it is show me other cases like it. If this is something you do all the time, show me other cases like it. And they can't. So he was right to say that, but it doesn't mean he's moved to the right. He's just being rational. That's all. He doesn't like Trump. He's not for Trump. He thinks Trump is a dangerous maniac. But Andrew should probably be in the mix, and he will probably put himself back into the mix. In this race, I don't know what path he would have. It's a party game, man. If the party's not for you, you're dead man walking.
Chris, you've often spoken to me. You love having me on your show. I love being on your show. And you've often expressed a desire to hear what I feel. So I'm going to give it to you straight, my man, and I hope it doesn't upset you. I'd vote for your brother today. I don't believe he should have been removed from office. I'd vote for him today. And on top of it all, let me say this to you, and I hope Andrew Cuomo is listening. I believe the easiest way for him to get back in is to go up against Trump. Because whatever anybody would try to attack Andrew Cuomo for, well, how are you going to do that in comparison to what Trump has endured? Ultimately, both would clamor to get back to the issues, to define who's the better man to be president of the United States of America. Now, I know we're upsetting a bunch of Democrats out there because Biden is in the incumbent. He hasn't backed out. He's still a Democratic nominee for president of the United States, even though he's the incumbent president and all that stuff. But what we saw last night, I'm very, very concerned that most Americans are going to believe there's no way in hell he can go 4 more years. If you're talking about voting for him, it's to facilitate Kamala Harris being in that White House without having to compete for the election herself. And I think based on that, that gives Andrew Cuomo an in. I'll give you the last word on that.
All right, so I'll counter. Harris is the problem, period. And they're playing the politics of optics is the Democrats' problem. So they did what they did. They made their bed, as we say. Andrew, you are greatly exaggerating the need for party support. It is a rigged game, okay? The parties win. Ask Bobby Kennedy, okay? Andrew could never mount an insurgency at this point and get on the ballots when the Democrats would actively be trying to keep him off. It's a rigged game. And I don't think that Democrats can survive their own left flank, who they have or which they have falsely empowered. You know, what happened with Jamal Bowman is instructive, okay? The squad has limitations. People are reasonable and they don't want radical. But Andrew is on their team and he has to play by the rules of his team. And that's why he had to resign. In his party, an allegation is enough. And he had lots of allegations. Doesn't matter what's true to them. Unless it's a righty who comes after you and they can dismiss the person making the allegation as a righty plant, like they did with Tara Reid. They go bad on their own based on their rules. And they can justify the rules and you can criticize their justification. But I don't know how Andrew gets into a rigged game if the people who are running the game don't want him in.
Right.
I don't see it. Are people talking him up? Yeah, but that's easy. Because they want you to get in so they can tear you down. And Andrew would have a mighty struggle on his hands. And I have not heard him say anything any different. But I get why people are asking about him. And I get how what mattered when you took him down doesn't seem to matter the same way right now. But that's what you did. That's what you did as a party. And now you got to live with it. And maybe you think you're better than him. Maybe Biden's enough. Maybe anti-Trump is enough. Maybe fear of Trump is enough. But you put yourself in quite a predicament. And last night should be no surprise to the Democrats, because this is who Joe Biden is. Joe Biden hasn't been hiding himself.
Right.
This is who he is. It's one thing to read a teleprompter at the State of the Union. It's one thing to give an address. It's another thing to take on somebody live and spontaneously. And he doesn't have what it takes to do that anymore. I don't think he's brain dead. I don't think he's being held up by people around him. I think he is functional. I think that he knows what the job is and how to do it, but he can't communicate the way a leader must during this time. So what are they going to do? You and I don't know.
Man, I appreciate you so much. And by the way, when I brought up Vice President Kamala Harris, I'd vote for her too. To be honest with you, I'd vote for her too. I just think that you're so attached to Biden for obvious reasons. You're a part of that administration. If he goes, everybody goes. That's the way I was thinking about it, but it's not to imply I wouldn't vote for her. Anyway, it's slice it. I defer to you, my brother, when it comes to the world of politics, because I learned so much from listening to you. I thank you so much for being on the show, man, taking time out of your busy schedule, man. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.
Stay on it, Stephen A. You are the voice that is needed in the dialogue because you're so smart, you're savvy, you know how to communicate, and you have no dog in the fight. And that is a beautiful thing for people. It's refreshing. They don't have to worry about what you're putting on them because it's transparent. And we need more of that among our thought leaders. And that's what you are. You are a thought leader. And that's why I respect you. I love you because of the friendship you've given me and the guidance you've given me. But I respect you because of what you objectively are. Here's what I can tell you. There are conversations going on today that were not going on yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's about how do we raise money for this guy? Where do we put our focus? And what is the next? They're asking the question they were not before.
Wow. Chris Cuomo, love you, my brother. I appreciate you, man. We'll talk soon. Take care. I don't even know where to go from there, to be honest with you. I don't even know where to go from there. I'm going to leave that for food for thought for everybody.